Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What happens when legendary singer Petula Clark, graceful and poised at 91, walks onto loose women expecting a friendly discussion, but ends up in one of the sharpest, most talked-about confrontations of the year? The audience buzzes with excitement as Petula takes her seat, a calm presence in the bright studio lights. The topic seems straightforward at first. Should Congress impose term limits on senators and representatives? But within moments, the conversation takes an unexpected turn. Denise Welch leans forward with that familiar spark in her eyes. "Come on, Petula. Some politicians have been in power for decades. Don't you think it's time to let new voices in?" Petula smiles politely, but her eyes flash with determination. "Experience matters, Denise. Stability matters. Knowledge doesn't expire just because someone has served a long time." The audience reacts instantly, some cheering Denise's boldness, others nodding at Petula's calm affability. Denise raises an eyebrow, voice sharp. Or maybe long-serving politicians just forget what it's like to struggle like the rest of us. Petula's expression hardens, and maybe impatience isn't progress either. The crowd gasps. The air in the studio thickens. Something deeper is unfolding here. This is no ordinary debate. By the time Petula leans forward, voice steady and piercing, viewers at home can't look away. What happens next will spark one of the most unforgettable confrontations in daytime television history. The studio hums with anticipation as the cameras roll. Petula Clark sits gracefully, hands folded neatly on her lap, while Denise Welch leans forward, eyes gleaming with impatience and mischief. The audience leans in too. They know a clash is brewing, and every word will matter. Janet Streetporter opens the segment with a grin. "So, ladies, we're talking term limits today. Petula, Denise, you've got very different ideas on this." The crowd murmurs in agreement, sensing the stage is set for a memorable exchange. Denise starts strong. "Let's be honest. Some politicians have been in office forever, decades. They become detached from the people they serve. Don't you think it's time for fresh energy?" Petula tilts her head slightly, her voice calm but firm. "Experience is not detachment. Those years in service come with knowledge, with lessons that no newcomer could possibly grasp immediately." The audience reacts, half nodding at Petula's measured tone, half cheering Denise's boldness. The tension is palpable. Denise smirks. Knowledge or stubbornness? Some of these career politicians hold on to power like it's a family heirloom. Petula's smile is polite but sharp. And some newcomers mistake impatience for progress. Wisdom is earned over time, Denise, not demanded overnight. The crowd murmurs approval. You can hear soft gasps and applause as the two women circle each other rhetorically, each point cutting closer to the other's convictions. Kay Adams tries to mediate gently. "Maybe it's not about age versus youth, it's about effectiveness. Can we agree on that?" Petula leans forward, eyes steady. "Effectiveness grows from understanding history, patterns, consequences. That's why long-term service can be invaluable." Denise rolls her eyes dramatically. "Or it can breed complacency. Look at the scandals, the ignored reforms. Experience doesn't guarantee morality or results." The audience reacts audibly, divided and energized. Some clap for Denise's candor, others cheer Petula's composed rebuttal. The energy in the studio builds like a storm ready to break. Petula's voice drops slightly, filled with quiet authority. "It's easy to point fingers, Denise, but dismissing decades of service as complacency is unfair. Some of those same politicians fought tirelessly for education, healthcare, civil rights. They built the foundations we live on. Denise leans closer, voice sharper. And some built empires for themselves while pretending to serve. That's why term limits exist in the first place, to stop the system from becoming a self-serving club. The audience gasps again. Whispers ripple through the studio. Some viewers nod in agreement with Denise. Others shake their heads at the perceived disrespect toward experience. Whoopi Goldberg laughs slightly, trying to diffuse some tension. Ladies, you're both giving us a master class in passion tonight. I don't know whether to cheer or take notes. Petula smiles faintly, maintaining poise. It's not about winning, Whoopi. It's about making people think before they judge experience. Denise laughs, shaking her head. And it's about reminding people that longevity doesn't automatically equal virtue. The audience erupts, some clapping, others laughing nervously at the intensity. The atmosphere crackles. This is more than a discussion. It's a collision of generations, of values, of ideals. Petula leans back, letting Denise have a moment, but her eyes are sharp, her mind deliberate. Denise leans in, voice softening only slightly, daring Petula to counter again. The cameras pan across the crowd. Some viewers are leaning forward in their seats, mouths slightly open. Others are nodding vigorously, caught in the raw energy of the debate. It's clear, this isn't just a conversation about term limits anymore. It's about respect, legacy, power, and responsibility. And the sparks on stage? They've only just begun to ignite.
The atmosphere in the studio has shifted. What started as a spirited discussion has grown into a full-blown showdown. Petula Clark leans forward slightly, her calm composure masking the fire in her eyes. Denise Welch, meanwhile, is leaning over the table, hands animated, ready to challenge every word. The audience senses the electricity. Half of them cheer, half hold their breath. Denise strikes first. Petula, let's be honest. You've had your time. Decades of watching politicians sit in Congress patting themselves on the back. Don't you think it's time for new voices to take over? Petula tilts her head, her voice smooth but firm. Experience doesn't expire, Denise. It evolves. Leaders who have served for decades carry with them the lessons of history, lessons that new voices simply haven't lived through. The audience murmurs. Some nod in agreement. Others clap in support of Denise's audacity. The studio is charged, every pause amplified. Denise strikes first. Or maybe they've evolved into people who care more about power than service. I mean, how many scandals do we need before we say enough is enough? Petula's expression tightens. Scandals are the exception, not the rule, and dismissing years of dedication because of a few bad apples is dangerous. You risk throwing out the wisdom with the mistakes. Denise shakes her head, voice rising slightly. Wisdom, let's call it what it is, entitlement. People cling to office because they don't want to face the real world outside their ivory towers. The crowd reacts audibly, some gasp, some cheer. You can feel the studio vibrating with energy. Kay Adams leans forward, trying to mediate. Perhaps both sides have a point. Experience matters, but so does accountability. Can we agree on that? Petula's eyes narrow slightly. Accountability is built over time, not imposed in arbitrary increments. Term limits risk replacing experience with inexperience. Denise laughs, though it's tinged with frustration. And inexperience is better than stagnation? How else do you force change? How else do you break the cycle of the same old politics? Petula's voice grows more pointed. Change without context is chaos. Progress built on ignorance is a house of cards waiting to fall.
The audience erupts, cheers, claps, even a few who whistle at the intensity. The camera pans across the crowd, capturing people leaning forward, whispering, absorbed in every exchange. Denise points a finger across the table. You talk about chaos like it's a threat. I call it life. The real world doesn't wait for decades of experience before punishing mistakes. Petula meets her gaze steadily. And the real world doesn't flourish without guidance either. Those who have endured failures, victories, and everything in between hold a perspective that no newcomer can replace overnight. The studio grows tense. Some audience members shift in their seats, sensing that this debate has moved past politics into something deeply personal. Whoopi Goldberg leans in with a half smile. Ladies, you're turning a daytime chat into something that feels more like Parliament itself. I don't know whether to cheer or take notes. Petula smiles faintly, her composure unshaken. I'm not here to win applause. I'm here to make people think before dismissing experience entirely. Denise laughs sharply. And I'm here to remind them that sometimes experience just needs to step aside for accountability to happen. The audience reacts instantly, some rising, some clapping, some whispering to each other. It's clear, this is no longer a debate about term limits. It's about the very meaning of leadership, the value of age, the tension between wisdom and the need for renewal. And as the cameras linger on the table, you can almost feel the spark of confrontation ready to ignite into something even more personal. The air in the studio feels heavier now. The cameras linger on Petula, who sits upright, hands clasped on her lap. Denise leans forward, elbows on the table, her usual fire still simmering, but there's a trace of curiosity in her eyes now. The audience leans in, sensing that this conversation is moving from policy to something more personal. Petula speaks first, her voice calm but imbued with quiet emotion. You know, Denise, it's easy to talk about term limits when you've never seen the long-term impact of leadership firsthand. I remember a time, decades ago, working with politicians who fought tirelessly for education and the arts. They didn't do it for headlines or applause. They did it because they believed in building something that would last beyond their lifetimes. A hush falls over the studio. Even Denise pauses, tilting her head slightly. The audience sits forward, sensing that this conversation is moving from policy to something more personal. My father, Petula continues, her voice softening, used to tell me, service isn't about time, Petula, it's about heart. I think about that every day. There were people in those offices who never sought glory, who never sought credit. They served because it was the right thing to do. They shaped lives quietly, behind the scenes, in ways most of us never notice. Denise exhales, her usual defiance giving way for a moment. I get that, she says quietly. I really do. My father was a factory worker. He believed people in power should step aside once they forget what it's like to struggle. He didn't care about fame or legacy. He wanted accountability. And I suppose that stuck with me. The audience reacts with murmurs of empathy, the energy shifting. This isn't about a political stance anymore. It's about lived experience, generational values, and the personal stories that inform them. Petula's eyes glisten slightly, though she maintains her composure. Exactly, Denise. And that's why experience matters. Because the people in office, the long-serving ones, have lived through struggles, victories, failures, and triumphs. They carry those lessons with them. And when they are gone, the country loses more than a name on a ballot. It loses the wisdom of decades. Denise nods slowly, her tone soft, but still challenging. And yet, Petula, I can't ignore that some of them forget the lessons. They grow comfortable, detached. Sometimes experience becomes a blind spot. We have to make room for fresh perspectives, even if it means questioning those we admire. Petula leans forward, hands resting lightly on the table, her gaze steady. I agree, fresh perspectives are important, but we must balance enthusiasm with insight, energy with reflection. A new voice without context risks repeating old mistakes. That's all I've ever meant. Progress built on understanding, not just novelty. The audience responds with a mixture of applause and quiet agreement. You can see people nodding, some murmuring to each other about the importance of both experience and accountability. Denise's voice grows softer, almost confessional. I suppose that's why this topic gets under my skin. I respect experience, but I've also seen people cling to power and lose touch with reality. And I guess I worry about repeating history without noticing it. Petula smiles faintly, a glimmer of warmth breaking through her poised exterior. That's exactly why we need both. People like you, questioning, challenging, reminding us to not become complacent, and people like those we honor, who dedicate their lives to service. Without one, the other cannot exist. The audience sighs collectively, a low hum of recognition passing through the studio. Whoopi leans forward, smiling. Ladies, you're making us rethink everything. Experience, accountability, balance. It's all right here, live on television. Petula nods. Debate isn't just about winning, Whoopi. It's about understanding. And maybe if we all listened a little more, respected a little more, progress wouldn't feel so adversarial. Denise chuckles softly, her usual sharpness softened by reflection. I suppose that's why this topic gets under my skin. I respect experience, but I've also seen people cling to power and lose touch with reality. And I guess I worry about repeating history without noticing it. The audience bursts into applause, louder this time, standing for a moment. Some wipe their eyes, clearly moved. The cameras pan across the crowd, capturing the mix of emotions: admiration, surprise, empathy. Petula's voice drops slightly, carrying both authority and tenderness. In the end, leadership is about people, not titles, not duration, people. And if we honor both experience and accountability, perhaps we can finally bridge the gap between generations. Denise nods slowly, her expression softening further. I suppose we're not as different as we thought. The studio falls into a respectful hush. Even the staff and production crew seem caught up in the gravity of the moment. It's clear, what began as a political debate has become a profound reflection on life, legacy, and the human need to be seen, heard, and remembered. Petula leans back, the faintest smile on her lips as the audience erupts again, not for victory, but for understanding.
The applause fades, but the studio remains charged. Denise leans forward again, her usual energy returning, sharper now, as though Petula's heartfelt words had stirred something deeper. Petula, she says, voice edged with frustration. I respect your decades of service and your passion, but let's be real. Some politicians cling to power because they like being in control. They've forgotten what it's like to be accountable. Shouldn't we stop excusing it just because they have experience? Petula's gaze narrows, her calm composure now mixed with quiet intensity. Denise, accountability isn't just about forcing people out. It's about honoring dedication that actually works, that builds communities, that shapes lives for the better. Not everything is black and white. Not everyone who serves a long time is corrupt or blind. The audience reacts immediately, a mix of cheers and gasps. Some side with Denise's fire, others with Petula's measured conviction. The tension is thick enough to feel in the air. Denise presses on, louder now. But how many decades do we allow before it becomes arrogance, before it's too late to change? Shouldn't the system itself prevent stagnation? Petula leans forward, her voice steady but forceful. And if you replace experience with inexperience, Denise, you risk losing more than just the old guard. You risk repeating mistakes that took decades to correct. That's what people forget when they call for term limits without nuance. Denise's hands gesture sharply. Nuance is fine, Petula, but people deserve representation that evolves with them. We can't let history alone dictate the future. The studio erupts in reaction again. Some viewers clap, others sit tense, caught in the crossfire of ideas and passion. Even Whoopi leans in, murmuring, "Wow, this is intense." Petula's eyes glint, emotion rising. Denise, it's not about clinging to power, it's about serving with purpose. And when you dismiss decades of commitment, you dismiss the lives that have been protected, educated, and uplifted through that service. That isn't arrogance, it's responsibility. Denise exhales sharply, her voice softening slightly, though her challenge remains. And yet, I can't ignore the danger of complacency, Petula. Even the best intentions can become blind if there's no renewal. Petula leans back, a faint, firm smile on her lips. Perhaps that's why we need both, people who question and people who remember. Without one, the other fails. The audience rises to its feet, a standing ovation rippling through the studio. Half the crowd cheers Denise's audacity, half cheers Petula's unwavering conviction. The energy is a mix of admiration, awe, and emotional release. Denise glances at Petula, a hint of respect breaking through her sharpness. Maybe there's more to experience than I give it credit for. Petula nods, a soft warmth in her eyes. And maybe there's more to questioning than impatience. For a moment, the studio is silent, the weight of the conversation settling over everyone. This is more than policy. It's about legacy, accountability, and bridging the gap between generations. Whoopi leans forward with a grin, breaking the tension gently. Ladies, that was some of the most gripping television I've seen in years. Give yourselves a hand. The audience erupts again, applause mixing with cheers. Cameras pan across faces filled with admiration, contemplation, and awe. The tension has reached its peak, and the path is now clear for reflection, understanding, and closure.
The cameras return after the brief break, and the atmosphere in the studio has shifted. The tension that had gripped the audience like a vice has softened into a sense of reflection. Petula sits with her hands folded, serene yet still commanding, while Denise leans back slightly, her expression thoughtful. Whoopi Goldberg leans forward, smiling warmly. Ladies, that was one of the most intense conversations we've had in quite some time, and yet I think it reminded everyone why debate matters. The audience responds with nods and gentle applause. Petula speaks first, her voice calm, carrying the weight of decades of perspective. Denise, I see your point about renewal and accountability. Every generation needs new voices to challenge the system, to bring energy and ideas. I understand that. Denise offers a small, respectful nod. And I see your point, Petula. Experience isn't just years, it's the lessons, the mistakes, the knowledge passed down. Without that, we risk forgetting what got us here in the first place. The audience softens, some leaning forward, caught in the quiet power of the exchange. There is no winner here in the traditional sense, only understanding. Petula continues, a faint smile touching her lips. Perhaps the lesson here is balance. Leadership needs both memory and momentum, both those who challenge and those who guide. Denise chuckles lightly, her usual edge replaced by sincerity. And maybe if we all listen a little more, we'd see that these debates aren't about conflict, they're about connection. The audience responds with soft applause, gradually swelling into a standing ovation. Faces reflect admiration,
contemplation, and even quiet tears. For a moment, television fades into something almost intimate, as though the viewers are witnessing not just a debate, but a bridge between generations. Petula and Denise exchange a subtle glance, a mixture of respect and mutual recognition. Thank you for reminding us, Denise, that progress without memory is incomplete. And thank you, Petula, for reminding us that accountability is not optional, it's essential. Whoopi leans back, her voice gentle but firm. Maybe that's the takeaway tonight. Experience matters, fresh perspective matters, and neither can exist without the other. The audience erupts one final time, applause echoing through the studio. Some rise, some murmur quietly to one another, the weight of the conversation settling into reflection. As the cameras pan across the set, the viewers at home are left with the sense that something profound has taken place. Petula walks off stage afterwards, pausing to shake hands with a few audience members, while Denise quietly hugs a staff member. These small, unscripted gestures are caught on camera and quickly make their way online. Within hours, clips of the exchange go viral. Petula Clark and Denise Welch debate term limits and remind us why both experience and accountability matter. Social media buzzes with admiration for the authenticity and depth of the conversation. Finally, the host delivers the closing line. If you loved this unforgettable clash, subscribe for more powerful debates, emotional confrontations, and moments that remind us that every generation has lessons to teach and lessons to learn. The segment ends, leaving the audience both in the studio and at home, reflecting on leadership, legacy, and the delicate balance between honoring the past and embracing the future.